Oral questions by members.
Member for Abbotsford Mission.
A woman was arrested for breaking into the neonatal intensive care unit at Surrey Memorial and making skin-to-skin contact with 3 vulnerable infants who were not hers. While frontline workers are overwhelmed, burnt out, people are now able to walk into our NICU and assault newborn babies. As a mother, I cannot imagine the terror and trauma these families are facing right now. How on earth was something this horrific allowed to happen in a BC hospital?
Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Thank you to the member for the question. What took place is extremely distressing, and I share the member's concern about even the possibility that someone might be able to enter a unit like that and have contact with children, precious children, newborn children, Mr. Speaker. That is why Fraser Health has taken quick action. They are looking into this and reviewing this. This is why the RCMP, the police have investigated. They have laid charges in this case. That is exactly the appropriate reaction, and I know that Fraser Health will continue to look at this, to take everything that they can to learn from this. They have already updated their security protocols and procedures to ensure that something like this never happens again.
Member supplemental.
We're glad an arrest has been made, but the question about safety in our hospitals still stands. Let's recap what we have in BC hospitals today. Nurses aren't safe, doctors aren't safe, patients aren't safe, and now even newborn babies aren't safe. Can the Premier tell us who exactly is safe in this province under his NDP government?
Minister of Health.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Safety of patients and of healthcare workers is our top priority in hospitals, Mr. Speaker. Healthcare workers need to know that they are supported and safe to be able to concentrate on the work that they do, delivering exceptional care to the people of British Columbia. Mr. Speaker, that's why we've brought in the Relational Security Initiative program. That's why we have hundreds of relational security officers working on sites across British Columbia. Mr. Speaker, that's why when incidents like what the member is describing take place, investigations are undertaken, lessons are learned, and improvements are made. That is the system working the way that it ought to, but Mr. Speaker, we cannot stop. We have to continue that focus on worker safety. We'll continue to work with the nurses on minimum nurse-to-patient ratios, for example, because that is one way, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that there are sufficient nurses on site, safe, and able to deliver the care that they can do in the working conditions that they deserve and expect. Thank you.
Member for Surrey Panorama.
Mr. Speaker, a man was stabbed and killed across from the Lugat single-room occupancy, Vancouver's 25th murder this year. The Hospitality Vancouver Association said, quote, "It is increasingly clear that the BC housing decision to locate over 300 SRO beds into a concentrated 2-block stretch of Granville Street is a failed experiment." Now, this question is an easy one for me, but if the minister stood where that man was stabbed, would she feel safer on that sidewalk where drug use runs rampant or where once again outlawed? Please, pick one.
Minister of Housing.
Thank you very much, Speaker. As the member likely knows or would be able to read in the news, we're working closely with the City of Vancouver on the relocation of tenants at the Lugat to ensure we're working with tenants to find good housing alternatives that work for them and meet their needs. The Lugat was an emergency COVID measure, and we understand that it hasn't worked well in the community. We've been in conversation with the city and with the business owners there, and that's why we're working to relocate those tenants by June of this year. We'll continue to work in partnership with the City of Vancouver, the Downtown Vancouver Business Association, and others.
Member supplemental.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the Lugat's not the only problem. Granville Street has become a government-run disaster zone. 3 SROs have racked up 6,600 police and fire calls, overdoses, stabbings, fires, and businesses being flooded from those SROs over 100 times so far. Vancouver's mayor is pleading. with the Premier to shut them down, saying people are dying in the streets, don't feel safe, and the financial fallout from this government's policies is astronomical. Why is the Premier forcing people to live in the Granville Street war zone his NDP government created?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, we're working with the city on the relocation of tenants at the Lugat. The other two SROs are part of an ongoing conversation. We understand that we can't just move these tenants onto the street. That would be a worse situation for everyone. That's why, unlike members on the opposite aisle, we continue to support and expand supportive housing beds across the province. We'll continue to do that work to ensure people have a good place to live. We have been, again, in conversation with the City of Vancouver. They put forward another number of sites. None of them are move-in ready for residents, and we will not move these tenants onto the street, so we continue to work on plans to relocate them in a way that supports them and improves safety, not just in the Granville District, but for everyone.
Leader of the third party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For years in our province, patients with complex health conditions leading to debilitating pain and fatigue have struggled to find appropriate care. Given the demands on family physicians, it's often difficult to get a diagnosis, never mind treatment. Based on Bowen Island and the riding I represent, the BC Centre for Long COVID, Myalgic Encephalomyelitis, Chronic Fatigue Syndrome, and Fibromyalgia became a lifeline during the pandemic and currently serves 6,000 patients across the province. This innovative multidisciplinary model of virtual group medical visits is under threat of being curtailed as of January 1st, reducing group sizes to the point where the model is no longer viable. Virtual group medical visits are efficient, cost-effective, and save the health system money, over $2 million a year, according to an analysis by accounting firm MNP. Mr. Speaker, we know the healthcare system is in crisis and health spending represents roughly a third of the government's budget. So why is the minister not supporting models like this that are proven to both increase care and save costs?
Minister of Health.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker, and thank you very much to the member for the question. First, I want to say, group medical visits are a really important way of supporting people who are living with some very complex conditions and often debilitating conditions like long COVID or like chronic fatigue syndrome, Mr. Speaker. And these are models that are helping patients get more time with care providers. It's enabling them to stay at home and access care. It's a way of improving support and continuity for care. Now, during the pandemic, the temporary measures, these were temporary measures that were introduced to expand access to virtual care. And in this post-pandemic era, the Ministry of Health has been working with Doctors of BC to strengthen virtual care visits, but also to be able to design fee codes that are a way of supporting care by setting some limits on group size and clarifying the billing rules. Mr. Speaker, I have heard from members of all sides of this House. I've heard from physicians. I have heard from patients about the benefit of these group medical visits, and that's why we put a pause on a decision that had initially been taken, and we are working and hearing from providers, from patients, and I'll have more to say about this soon. I understand that people are waiting to hear an update. Thank you.
Member supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the pause, and I'm asking this question now because people are trying to plan their lives beyond January 1st. So unless the minister acts soon, the clinic will need to reconfigure on January 1st to do more non-group patient visits, which will add to wait times. Smaller group sizes mean physician-only care, which restricts the volume of patients who can be seen. Some patients will be forced to seek out care in emergency rooms, from family doctors, and from specialists as a consequence of reduced clinic care. This will severely disadvantage rural and remote patients and those bed and housebound by disability. Patient volumes will be restricted at a time when complex chronic disease patient numbers are on the increase. So will the minister intervene with the Medical Services Commission to do the right thing and modify the group size cap to allow these expert practitioners to continue to help these patients in need?
Minister of Health.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker. The member's done a great job of describing why these are of benefit, and again, expressing some of the interventions I have heard directly from physicians and from patients, from other care providers. That's why We paused on the decision. That's why we are consulting directly with Doctors of BC and hearing from other care providers. That engagement is important so that we can make a good decision moving forward, Mr. Speaker. I'll have a lot more to say on that in the future. And again, I just want to acknowledge, I understand people are waiting to understand what the decision is. But at the heart of this, again, is we understand group medical visits are really helping people, particularly those who cannot leave home, those people who are living in remote and rural areas, and it's important to be able to continue these. Thank you.
Leader of the Fourth Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Premier's government is pushing changes to the Heritage Conservation Act that create the preconditions for rampant extortion and further destabilization of private property rights in British Columbia. And this is how it will work. A local tribe can decide that your property is their sacred ground. Then you won't be able to put a single fence post until you pay that tribe's company thousands of dollars to come to your home to dig for artifacts. But even if they don't find any, they can use dreams or stories or traditions to label your property a heritage site, thus triggering yet more costly studies, delays, or outright work stoppage. All because the new rules remove requirements for physical evidence. Mr. Speaker, will the Premier categorically denounce these proposed changes to the Heritage Conservation Act that allow tribes to block work on private property with absolutely no physical evidence?
Minister of Forests.
Thanks very much, Mr. Speaker. To the member's question, first, the member refers to changes that are being made and then mentions proposed changes. There are no changes. We are having a conversation with British Columbians. We are having a conversation with First Nations, with industry, with local governments, bringing them all to the table to talk about a piece of legislation that is archaic, that has last been amended over 30 years ago, that is not working for British Columbians today. We have major projects on this side of the House that we want to move forward. The Heritage Conservation Act is getting in the way. We have communities like Lytton that have been devastated with wildfires that are challenging rebuilds, and the Heritage Conservation Act is getting in the way. And then you have First Nations, Mr. Speaker, who want to be involved in discussions about their ancestors. I think all of us can agree, if those were our ancestors, we would want to be there, part of that conversation. And so I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, to the member opposite, that we're going to bring everyone to the table to ensure that we get this legislation right and do it in a way that is going to move British Columbia forward.
Member supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaking of claims without any physical evidence, it has been over 4 years now since Chief Roseanne Casimir of the Kamloops Indian Band accused Canadians of murdering 215 children from the Kamloops Indian Residential School. An accusation of mass murder requires evidence, but there isn't any. No reports of missing children, no names, and no bodies. Despite receiving $12.1 million to investigate, Casimir has refused to conduct excavations and has asked the RCMP not to do any excavations either. Mr. Speaker, my question to the Premier, will he show leadership and defend innocent Canadians and join me in calling on the RCMP to finally investigate this grotesque accusation that has gone on and has gone on for far too long?
Minister of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. It's unfortunate that one member decides to divide this House, to divide this country, divide this province. It's unfortunate that her colleague has decided to chime in on this hateful behaviour. We know that some children did not come home, whether that was tuberculosis, starving, drowning, getting attacked. We know that there are thousands of children who never came home. That's the fact. That's the truth. We know they were taken from their families without permission. We know that they were harmed, they were hit if they dared to speak their own language, if they dared to practice their own cultural traditions. I spoke with a man the other day whose brother was going to die by drowning because he took a rowboat so he could escape from the residential school where he'd been locked up. so that he could get home to his family. He had not been allowed to see his family. So for the member to suggest that these things didn't happen, it's not only gross, it's offensive, and it's wrong. I'm not going to ask her to dig up her grandparents to prove they died, because that would be offensive. That would be wrong. That would be horrendous and inhumane. Yet for the fact that she goes on to call on any First Nations person in this province that they have to go up and dig the bodies of their children that were killed, children who died in residential schools, it's gross, it's wrong. The member should be ashamed of herself, and I know her grandchildren would be ashamed of her, because you do not treat other people like that. It's shameful.
Thank you. Member for Langley Walnut Grove.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Fraser Health just announced that Langley Memorial Hospital earned international recognition for top surgical outcomes, a rare good news story in BC's healthcare system. But ironically, these are the same surgeons who just last September wrote the Minister of Health warning, quote, the unparalleled chronic neglect of surgical infrastructure at Langley Memorial Hospital cannot continue. We are long past being able to deliver the standard of care and experience our patients and the community deserve. They're right. The OR hasn't seen a major upgrade in 35 years. That's older than some members of this chamber. And they repeatedly announced hospital expansion may not include the OR. So, Mr. Speaker, when will the Infrastructure Minister commit to upgrades to the surgical ward at Langley Memorial Hospital? Or do our doctors need to keep performing world-class results in third world conditions?
Minister of Infrastructure.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker. Healthcare infrastructure here in British Columbia is so incredibly vital to our collective ability to serve communities and to serve the people who need that kind of services that our hospitals provide. We have been undergoing the single largest investment in healthcare infrastructure upgrades in BC history. These are absolutely record-breaking investments that have so far meant at least 30 major capital projects involving hospitals, long-term care homes, urgent primary care centers, right across the province. However, we also know that there is more to do, which is why we are committed to continuing this work, including in communities like Langley. This work is underway as Fraser Health works with their communities to understand the needs, and we're going to be looking forward to next steps. Thank you.
Member for Peace River South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Tumbler Ridge, Councillor Nicole Noxana was so worried that there were not enough ambulances for her community that she did not call 911 when she became seriously ill. She ended up needing emergency surgery that same evening. Now, the same danger is spreading across the north. Stewart lost so many paramedics, it had 0 ambulances for the entire region. And Kitawonga's only ambulance station is literally derelict. How does this Premier justify leaving whole communities with no ambulance, no ER, and no way to get help when someone's life is on the line?
Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. Ensuring that when you call 911, an ambulance is there to deliver the care that you need is absolutely essential, no matter how large or small your community is. Mr. Speaker, that's why our government has taken unprecedented steps in investing into rural communities, ambulance services, new stations, new ambulances, more paramedics, Mr. Speaker, but nothing could be more important than ensuring that those smaller communities like Tumbler Ridge, like Stewart, have access to the resources they need. Mr. Speaker, I spoke directly to Mayor Krakauka just last week about the ambulance services in Tumbler Ridge. I know that BC Emergency Health Services is constantly monitoring coverage and monitoring the outcomes of calls, Mr. Speaker, always in an effort to allocate resources to the best place possible, but I do not want a single British Columbian to hesitate to call 911 in your time of need. They are there. They are highly trained, highly capable people doing amazing work in our communities. They are there to serve us and to care for us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Berkeley Valley Stikine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Through to the minister. Well, that's really interesting because on Highway 37, a woman sent me a letter and her husband died in her driveway because there was no ambulance for over 2 hours. His partner did everything right, called 911, tried to get him help, but the help simply was not there. Will the Premier admit under his watch rural British Columbians are being left to die without proper emergency care?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we continue to work with health authorities, with the BC Emergency Health Services, and are investing more than ever in BC's ambulance service. Mr. Speaker, there are more paramedics working here in BC than ever before. Staffing has increased 40% since 2019. Mr. Speaker, we have invested more than $475 million back when we took government in 2017 and increased that to over $1 billion, Mr. Speaker, in the last fiscal. We are going to continue to do the work that is required to ensure services are there in remote communities, to ensure that people, when they call 911, that the help is there for them. Thank you.
Member for Delta South.
Mr. Speaker, in Delta, the mayor is so fed up. He's talking about running his own hospital because of this broken healthcare system. This isn't just a Delta problem, Mr. Speaker. In the last week alone, Fort Macleod ER closed, 100 Mile House ER closed, Port Hardy's ER has been closed overnight for nearly 3 years, and the minister's own ER and ICU in Port Alberni is shut down indefinitely because they don't have the staff to run it. How can doctors expect to do their jobs in this province and save lives when this minister cannot keep emergency rooms open?
Minister of Health.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker. It is really hard on communities when their emergency room closes. We know that we're facing workforce challenges across the province. I do want to correct the member. He is correct that the intensive care unit has been diverted at West Coast General Hospital in Port Alberni, but the ER does remain open. Nonetheless, Mr. Speaker, when you're counting on emergency services, you know that they need to be there for you. And Mr. Speaker, that's why we are doing everything we can in the short term, working with health authorities who find locums, who are working the phones, who are calling out to find people to come and take these shifts in emergency rooms. But Mr. Speaker, to build up that workforce, we need more doctors. That's why we're opening a new medical school in Surrey, Mr. Speaker, through SFU. That's why we've expanded the seats at UBC, Mr. Speaker. That'll take a few years, I know, to realize that. And that's why reaching out to other jurisdictions and inviting people to come work here in British Columbia's universal public healthcare system is absolutely integral. Mr. Speaker, it is working. We are seeing physicians, nurses, nurse practitioners. They are choosing to move to British Columbia. We are fast-tracking their credentialing. What used to be years is now months for doctors. What used to be months for nurses is now a matter of weeks or even days. Mr. Speaker, we're not going to let up. We know how much work there is to do to rebuild and strengthen this healthcare system, and we are not going to stop.
Member for Kelowna Centre.
A downtown Kelowna shop had its windows smashed 3 times this year. And after the latest axe attack, the offender laughed and says, "Doesn't matter, I'll be out tomorrow." Kelowna businesses are fed up with the crime and chaos. Well, this government hands out drugs and releases violent offenders the same day. Will the Premier finally admit that nobody, not even businesses, are safe under his watch?
Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. British Columbia has been leading the country on pushing for bail reform across this country. Right now in front of Ottawa sits a bill that contains many of BC's ideas that are focused around circling around those offenders that are causing the most repeated harm to communities, to tightening up those bail laws to keep them off the street. I heard from mayors about these individuals and what's needed in the criminal code to make those changes, and that's what's before Ottawa right now. I'm really proud of our leadership, Mr. Speaker, in making those changes, and I hope that they pass quickly. Thank you.
Member for Skinner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Respectfully, the only thing that this government is doing right now is leading the country in chaos. In one day, Vancouver firefighters had to respond to 54 overdoses, the highest ever recorded. Firefighters are now responding to an average of 45 overdoses a day, pulled away from other emergencies to chase this government's chaos around. According to the First Nations Health Authority, they say that the week of November 17th broke every provincial record for drug-related 911 calls. And we know that firefighters at Hall 2 are now being pulled off duty early because of the trauma and the human suffering that they're forced to deal with every day. Similar to what we're seeing going on with nurses right now, the burnout is happening for first responders. So a very simple question to the Premier. Are these the kind of records that this Premier wants to be remembered for?
Yeah. Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The toxic drug crisis continues to devastate communities across BC, families who are losing loved ones, people who are brothers and sisters and sons and daughters, and every single life lost is one too many. Mr. Speaker, that's why we are going to continue to take every action that we can to connect people to care, to help intervene early and often, and to separate them from a toxic, a dangerous, a poisonous drug supply. Mr. Speaker, that drug supply is changing quickly. It is evolving, and we are adapting as well. Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue with harm reduction efforts that keep people alive so that we can help connect them to the care that they need. Mr. Speaker, I want to say thank you to every single first responder in the fire department, across the ambulance service, in communities. Mr. Speaker, these people are doing heroes' work, responding to tragedy. And Mr. Speaker, we are going to continue to build out a system of care to support people, not to stigmatize people. Mr. Speaker, it's so vitally important that they get connected to the care they need, and that's why we're going to continue with Road to Recovery. That's why we're going to continue to add treatment beds, Mr. Speaker. That's why we're going to continue to help people in the recovery and aftercare that they need. And I look forward to working with this member on that together. Thank you.
Member supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The problem is that the first responders and the firefighters, they don't want the thanks or the praise right now. They just want what they've been asking for. They want this government to take it seriously and to fix these problems. And the issue that I'm having is that this morning I was at a symposium on recovery. A lot of colleagues were there, nobody from the government side, to hear what needed to be heard about the issues that we're facing right now. And a very prominent Metro Vancouver mayor was asked a simple question. If he could have one thing from this Premier, what would it be? And his response was that he hoped he would keep his promises. Because we have been promised involuntary care. We've been promised, over 100 beds about a year ago? Nothing moving forward there. We got, I think, 10 beds. We've been promised that decriminalization was a failed experiment, but yet decriminalization remains in place. No commitment from this Premier on when they're going to roll that back. We were promised back in the spring that changes were going to be made to SROs and supportive housing because of the tragedies that we're seeing playing out in them right now. No changes there. We can pay for every consultant, every czar, every whatever, but we're not seeing changes on the ground. And that's the problem. Nobody's seeing anything change. If the ideology behind harm reduction was working, we would see some changes, but we don't see those changes. We see a province that is struggling the most with overdoses, with crime, with all of these things. So I'm sick and tired of compassion being weaponized. I think that most people are. Will this government do the right thing, the actual compassionate thing for people that are struggling, and make sure that we have access to involuntary care, make sure that we build out a system of recovery for people, make sure that we're actually supporting getting people lifted up from the place that they're at right now, rather than keeping them under the government's boot and keeping them in supportive housing that isn't actually helping them. So again, to the Premier, is this the record that this Premier wants to be remembered by?
Mr. Premier.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I appreciate the member's passion about this issue. I feel passionate about it too. Every British Columbian deserves a safe community, and be safe at home. People who are struggling with addiction need the treatment and supports they need. Same with people struggling with mental health issues and brain injury. Now, what the member was incorrect about was a number of her allegations related to the record of this province. So in British Columbia, 2024 versus 2023, crime severity is down 11% and the overall crime rate is down 7%. We led Canada in crime reduction. And that's because of innovative programs. I'm not saying we're done, Honourable Member. We're still doing the work, but we're pointing in the right direction. We've opened in...
Members, come to order, please. Premier.
We've opened involuntary mental health care in our prisons, where many people are struggling who have addiction issues, brain injuries, mental health issues. We've identified a site in Surrey and a site in Prince George where we're working to open additional involuntary care beds. At 17 different hospitals across the province, we've either expanded or renovated involuntary care beds. So what the member says simply is not correct. We've opened 760 additional addiction beds, voluntary addiction beds in this province to provide people with the care they need. We've amended the decriminalization initiative to make sure that if someone's at home and they've overdosed, they feel secure calling for an ambulance. They're not worried they're going to lose their job, but to keep people safe in our parks and our streets by criminalizing public drug use. We're going to continue to do this work. This is not an easy issue. It's not an issue we're going to solve overnight. People are...
Members.
The drugs are...
Members.
Speaker, the drugs are more toxic than they've ever been. This recent batch was mixed with, I'm told, horse tranquilizer, Honourable Speaker. These drug dealers have no conscience. They have no shame, and they are killing their customers, Honourable Speaker. So we'll do everything we can to support people, those who haven't died but have suffered serious brain injury or struggling in our communities. And we're going to do the hard work with compassion and care to make sure people are safe. Thank you.
The bell and the question period.